So we're with Pastor Bob here. And Pastor Bob, what is your exact title? Because you do so many things at Pure Heart Church. And I always see you meeting with people, going here and there. You're in brush fire. What is your actual title?
Well, probably my actual time. I'm on the lead pastor team, and so I lead a team that primarily focuses, Matt, on our compassionate ministry work or community development work, both locally and globally.
So this is really when Pastor Dan talks about we're becoming like Jesus for the sake of others. We talk about in Christianity being the hands and feet of Jesus. These are the types of things, let's say maybe tangible things we can see, our faith in action.
Sure, and that could be on grounds here on campus with like our emergency resource center and some of the other additional programs that we offer and services that we provide to the community through the resource center. But it's not limited to just our activity on campus. Probably 75 to 80% of the work that we do is out in neighborhoods across the city, around the valley, across the state, and even globally.
Yeah, and I saw your team during COVID. We think back to COVID a few years ago. You'd been here for how long at that point? Maybe a year?
Almost 2 years at
Almost
that
two
point.
years. And I mean, your team, like during that time, they distributed how much food monthly or during that time? Like, I mean, it was thousands and thousands of pounds of food.
Yeah, I mean, it was massive. I mean, in fact, when the rest of the world shut down, literally, my team went into high gear. So, we were open 6 days a week in our emergency resource center. The center was closed, but we moved everything outside, drive-through lines where people could still come through the lines and they could have access to meat, dairy, fresh produce, household cleaning supplies, and hygiene products. Not only were we distributing product, but we actually, Matt, had to open up a third lane where people could drive through to donate because people were so ready to give. I really honestly, in 35 years of ministry here in the Valley, I've never seen anything like some of the things that I saw during the global pandemic as it relates to two things, really: people's willingness to be generous and give, and then also the amount of the volume of product that God brought to us to freely give away and distribute. So we like to say it this way: our outflow, so the amount of product that went out from our resource center, increased by 4 times during COVID. So, we didn't have to be scared. We didn't have to be stingy with our resources. We found that the more we gave away, the more God gave to us. In fact, we used to have an agreement. I led our team in this way. I said, okay, this is the week that we're going to outgive God. So whatever he brings in, we're going to outgive. And during that whole 18-month period, not one time did we outgive God. I mean, there were certain times we get real close.
Sure.
I'm like, this is it. This is the time we beat God, And then my phone would ring or a knock on the door, and somebody would have a semi-load or another massive truckload of supplies that they wanted to donate, whether it was a farmer in Monte Vista, Colorado, who I'd never even met before, who called me one day and said, Pastor Bob, you don't know me, but I've heard of you, work you guys are doing. I've got a semi-load of potatoes that I'm digging up out of the ground right here in Monte Vista, Colorado, and I want to bring it to you. I want to pay for the transportation of that. If you can just promise me that you'll be able to not waste it, that you'll give it away.
Sure.
And we gave away a full 50-foot tractor trailer of potatoes, 10-pound bags of potatoes, Matt, like, I don't know, I think it was like 40 pallets of potatoes. Within 48 hours, we handed it out to people. So we learned that through COVID, we were never going to outgive God.
I love that. For me, it just, our church being such, more than just a weekend service church, the fact that we get to go and minister and love and care, and the fact that people hear about us, and they may not be believers, may not be people of faith, but they just go, hey, I've heard about what you've done. And I think that just is, to me, a tangible witness to really Christ's love. You shared a story about with me recently, and I think it shone a light on a different aspect of a life that we don't often hear about. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an emergency resource center here on our campus, a resource center where we serve about 750 households a month, which would be somewhere between in the neighborhood of around 3,300 people every month. And they'll be coming in for emergency food product, hygiene product, household cleaning supplies, pet products, and things like that. So this last week, in fact, last Wednesday night, we had a young lady who came in about 5 o'clock. Centers normally shut down during those hours for resupply and so forth. Anyway, one of my team leads was in the resource center at the time when this young lady stopped by. And she had been referred to us by 211, which is a phone number that houses a network of information on emergency agencies such as ourselves. She had just several days before stopping in here to our resource center, she had fled Kansas in the middle of the night from her bruiser, as she called him, so her abuser. She had been in a number of terrifying experiences with this guy. She had left him several times and always felt the need to return because she was fearful that she would be able to provide for herself and her kids on her own. Sure. So in the middle of the night, she rented this car from Enterprise. She packed up what few things she could gather and what little cash she had. She rented this car and she headed out to Arizona, which she thought would be the safest place for her to go, the least likely place that her abuser would find her. Yeah. She arrived here having never been here before, didn't know anybody. She landed at our resource center. We connected with her, got her some supplies, and then referred her to a temporary outdoor shelter option that we now provide for women and children who are sleeping in their cars for emergency purposes. And we got her tucked away. She and her 3 kids, ages 4, 5, and 7. Beautiful kids, beautiful mom, great, just an incredible young lady, but in fear, running for her life. And we were able to get her settled for the night. She got the first good night's sleep that she had had in many nights. Along the way, as she was traveling from Kansas to Phoenix, she would stop in different little communities where she could deliver food, Uber meals. And she would be able to earn just enough money to be able to continue her journey to safety across the country to land here in Phoenix. And so she was pretty tired. She was pretty spent emotionally, physically, mentally, in all ways. And so we were able to give her that first night a good night's rest. Next day, my team shows up with her team of 3, shows up in the morning to greet her and kind of help untangle the situation that she was in. First task was to get her over to Enterprise. Her rental agreement was now overdue by several days, and her car was on empty. So they went to Enterprise and just advocated for her, which is something that we're able to do. Shared her story, and the folks at Enterprise were so moved by her courage and her story that they waived all of the fees. So her additional rental car fees, her gas tank being on empty, they waived all of that. And we went on then to the next task for her, which was, well, where's she going to go now? And one of my team members reached out to an agency that we have a long-standing relationship with, a shelter that she had been denied access into the night before. She had called 10 to 12 different shelter options here in the Valley, and she was denied access because all of our shelters are full. Yeah. The largest family shelter in the state of Arizona has about 300 individuals, 300 women a night. They have on average one opening per month, and they have over 300 people waiting for that opening. This is across the board true in the Valley. And so she was denied access into any of those shelters. Well, we were calling one of those now the next day that she had been denied access into. And they said, well, listen, it just never happens. But literally 30 minutes before your call, we had an opening come available. And if she fits the criteria, it's a very specific set of criterion that she has to meet in order to be eligible for our program. If you can get her down here by 10 o'clock in the next hour for an intake interview, we'll see how she does. We'll see if it's a fit. My team got her down there, sat through the interview with her, played with the kids while she was in the interview. And Matt, no exaggeration, my friend, she checked the boxes. They were able to check all the boxes required for her to gain entrance into that program. And as a result, she now is a part of this stellar, incredible program. For the next year, she has her own apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, and she's going to have access to programs and services that are just They'll help her heal and recover. Example, she's not even allowed to work for the first 3 months that she's in the program. They cover all of her expenses, all of her bills, so that she can do one thing, and that's focus on herself, her own healing, her own transformation. So that's the kind of stuff that we get to be a part of, here at Pure Heart, just because we've said yes to the things that God has called us to. And some of them are edgy, some of them are very challenging, almost all of them are messy. They're not quick solves. They require us wading in, up to our eyeballs into these situations that people find themselves into. But these are all people who are stamped with the Imago Dei, the very image of God. God loves them. He cares for them. And I think he's looking for people who will lean into that with people and love on people. And when we do, getting back to the earlier story, I believe that he makes sure we have everything that we need to be able to do that with people.
What I really love is that so many times we hear pushback against government services. Okay, the government can be a waste of money, and where's their tax dollars going to and stuff. But then I hear stories like this, that there's grant money that's gone to these different type of opportunities. There's different programs that can get these women connected. But there's the faith-based community that's stepping into these gaps and saying, look, let's do the job of the church. Let's be there as the church, because the government's not going to take care of all this, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to wade too far into those sort of political waters, but I will agree with you, Matt, that it's my opinion, it's my belief, even stronger than opinion, that really we shouldn't need the government to do those kinds of things. I believe that these are opportunities that sit in front of us for the church, and no one is suited to better engage the needs of our communities than the church. If you think about it, we're God's covenant kids. And because we're his covenant people, walking in covenant relationship with him, we're assured of two things that the rest of the world really just isn't assured of to the same degree that we are. Number one, we have the authority of heaven. Okay? So we can change things, like we can alter things because we have the authority of heaven. Secondly, we have access to the full provision of heaven. Now, let me ask you this question, Matt. What does heaven not own? What does heaven not control? The answer is nothing, right?
Such a good way of saying
we
it.
have this unlimited access to the provisions of heaven. Do we need government? We may need the partnership of government for certain things, legislation and things like these important matters where the marginalized and the overlooked and the dismissed, their voice isn't being heard. Their lives aren't being considered in many cases when it comes to policy and legislation. So I think those are the places that we have great responsibility to show up. But when it comes to resources, I think God's people are suited to be able to pursue those things, trust those things, and receive those things, and then distribute those things like no other entity on earth.
I know Dan sometimes talks about in the financial series, he goes, if all Americans, people that quote unquote call themselves Christians, if they tithe 10%, the amount of money that would be available to reach the resources, we wouldn't need anything from the government at all.
Sure.
It's really the church has the ability to. We have the people there. We have smart people in the church.
Yes,
we have people that care in the church.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes though there's a disconnect between people knowing how to get involved. They have a care. They have something that they care deeply about. Many times because it's something they've experienced or loved ones that have experienced in their life. But they don't know how to go help that. They don't know how to get connected with that. And your team's been digging into that, of trying to connect people's needs and really the things that they value pouring into with needs from the church community.
Oh, no question. And your comments there are very on point, very wise, Matt, and relevant. I mean, one of the things that I teach my team, and really all of our people as much as we can, live awake, which simply means that we're more attentive to the moment that we find ourselves in, the moment that God has placed us in. So we're trying to pay attention to needs. We're trying to pay attention to people. We're listening in, leaning into conversations. We're listening with a different ear of sensitivity to opportunities that God may want us to be paying attention to. And then along the way, I have found, Matt, that many, many, many people, not just Christians, but many, many people want to contribute to the goodness and the betterment of our communities and society and in general. But they don't know, to your point earlier, they don't know where to go to maybe place their gifts or their talents or their time or maybe even their financial resources. They're looking for a place to be able to do that in meaningful ways, but also looking to partner with people or groups that they can trust to actually do with their resources, particularly their finances, what we claim we are doing or what we're able to do. So I think it's a great opportunity for the church. I've been in pastoral ministry now for close to 35 years. I don't know if I've ever seen such a potential harvest of opportunities like I'm seeing in the church today or available to the church today. I think the conditions are ripe really, for the church to show up and be the church and do the things that we're capable of doing. And all of that really is centered around this primary message of the main theme of the Bible, which is love. To be able to love people and demonstrate God's love in practical and tangible ways. And by that I mean, well, if you're hungry, let's talk about what it takes to see you get some food. If you're naked, let's talk about what it looks like to perhaps look at opportunities to get you clothing. If you need a job, so forth and so on, you need an education, health care, a place to sleep tonight, safety, security. These are all really important, relevant issues to people in our world today. And I think that when we can address those in practical and relevant ways, those are practical demonstrations of God's love. So we move from just singing songs about God's love in our church and praying prayers about God's love and preaching messages about God's love. We move beyond. Those are all good things. Don't hear what I'm not saying, right? Those are important and valuable things. But we move beyond those things to the next level, which is where love demonstrates itself. It shows itself through many times our hands, through our voices, through our presence, just being there. I think it's very, very important. I think it's very, very powerful. In the early church, the first couple hundred years of the early church, the Christians were known for their love, but it was practical. It was demonstrated. Say a disease would roll through a village or a community and just practically wipe out a whole community, and many of the people would flee because they were fearful of getting sick, getting disease, and dying. But the Christians were known, Matt, to stay put. They stayed. They put themselves in some cases, in harm's reach to stay. Why? To care for the disease, to care for the sick, to care for the people that could no longer care for themselves. And we had that reputation in the first century of people who didn't just sing songs about God's love, pray prayers about God's love, and preach wonderful messages about God's love, but we demonstrated it like we were willing to stay put, show up, and show his love in practical and tangible ways. I think this is an amazing opportunity. It's a calling for the church to, in some ways, go back to our roots and practice that form of evangelism. I believe it's the new form. It's an old form in a new package of evangelism in our day. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
In our resource center, I know that one of the things we get to do is we get to pray with people as they're there. And so people that would never probably be interested in if you came up to them on the street or something, can I pray for you? I don't know about that. Here they are, we're serving their physical needs.
Sure.
And it gives us the opportunity to serve soul needs, spiritual needs on top of that. It opens this door of, wait, I'm feeling loved by you. I see that you care about me. Yeah, I'd be open to hear what you have to say.
No question. I think that our willingness to demonstrate love and care in practical and tangible ways. And I'm talking about not human love and care. I'm talking about something beyond that. I'm talking about supernatural. I'm talking about a reflection of heaven's love and care, which is a step beyond my own human comfort levels and convenience and all those kinds of things that we tend to get sort of sideways with in our own human nature. And when we do that in a more supernatural manner, meaning allowing God to move through us, I think there's a whole different kind of receptivity. I see it every single week in and week out in our resource center. People who are at first closed or guarded or hesitant or distrusting, whatever. But through the course of the engagement that we have with them, the interaction with them, you can just sense something starts to open up in them a little bit, where when we ask the question, hey, would it be okay with you if I pray with you before you go today? I don't even need all 5 fingers on this hand, Matt, to count the numbers of people who have rejected that offer, that opportunity. Most people, regardless of their skin color, their background, all these different nuances, most people are, I have found, are open to that kind of interaction and even that kind of ministry. Once we demonstrate for them that we really do care and we love, and there are no strings attached. I'm not expecting something from you in return, because that's not love. If I offer something to you with the expectation that I'm going to gain something or get something in return, which even could be, well, you're going to show up in church for a Bible study so I can count you sometime. See, that's not love. That's not giving. That's manipulation. So once people know that we're authentic with who we are, and really what this is about this moment. Sometimes people say, well, they make a reference to coming to church, and I'm like, you just did. Like we're in church right now, you and
Yeah.
me together. We're in church right now. We're having this moment together, and we're sharing here. We're recognizing God's presence and his beautiful ministry among us, and his power and his love for you and me, and the commonality that we share in our own humanity. That's church. It's a form of church.
I love that. That's so good. I remember some people that I met through the resource center that had been helped, who had lost everything. Their house had burned down. They had lost completely everything. And the church they'd been attending, and this isn't a dig on any other church, but the church they'd been attending, they didn't feel comfortable going to there, or there was some sorts of misunderstanding or something that they didn't feel like they could go to that church for resources or for help. We hadn't been attending as much recently, and there's some other things kind of going on. I don't know the whole backstory, but they came to our resource center, and we were able to have some conversations. And suddenly they go, "Wow, I can't believe you guys. We don't even attend your church. Why are you doing this for us?" And it's like, you don't need to attend our church. That's not the condition. I don't need you to show up on Sunday to get the next food box.
Right.
That's not what we're about. This is about an outstretched hand of caring and loving for you because you're in need.
Right.
It's what God calls us to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you run LifeBridge. What's the technical term? LifeBridge Community Outreach. Is that correct?
Yeah, LifeBridge. It's our LifeBridge at Pure Heart team. So LifeBridge is an organization, an entity that I started 22 years ago, and we wanted to bring that work and that emphasis alongside and integrate it into the Pure Heart family, because it just beautifully parallels what Pure Heart has been about for so many years.
Yeah, that's good. And one of the things I just wanted to talk a little bit about is you talk about living awake. You always say, it's about living awake. It's about seeing the person that's in front of you. And we have an initiative we started recently that addresses several of the stories that I've heard come out of your mouth as you see the needs come across and through our resource center. But one of those moments that you were living awake, can you just share what that looked like?
Yeah, I just try to coach our team and our volunteers to just be attentive. And as you say, live awake, present in the moment, each moment that God gives us, because I believe that, he's the good God that brought the sun up this morning. And he does that with great intentionality and purpose. And there's so much just in that move in and of itself at the beginning of every day that we can be reminded of how attentive God is and how beautiful and creative and how powerful, how authoritative it is. Because, no matter how good I think I am, I'm not capable of bringing the sun up. So he brings the sun up as a reminder to me that, that he's got it. He's in control. And then miraculously, he chooses to bring me up out of bed. He did that today to join him in the work of his day. And so that means that each and every day is very intentional and strategic from heaven's perspective. So my role, I think, to a large degree, is just to dial into that, to be in tune with that. So what do these little moments look like that he has intentionally placed me in? Some of those moments are for me, for my own growth, for my own acknowledgement, maybe for my own just edification, or enjoyment, as I said, but sometimes they have to do with other people that he's placing me in their life, or he's bringing them into my life. And so one of those moments occurred a number of months ago with a young lady who came into our resource center in her early 30s with her two beautiful little girls, 7 and 5. Girls are named Eternity and Hope. And through the course of the interview that I was privileged to do with this young mom, she was willing to open up some of her story with me. And she shared with me how she had been living in her car, unsheltered, but living in her car with her two little girls for the last 8 months. And I asked her questions.
In Phoenix.
Here in Phoenix, yeah.
In the Phoenix heat, I can't even imagine.
Correct, yeah. Oh, it's an unbelievable story that she shared with me. And she was willing to share the details, not only of her current arrangement, living arrangement, and so forth and so on, but we developed a level of trust throughout the conversation where she was willing to share with me about some of the things that got her to that place. And it was just so soul gripping is the only set of words that I could use to describe that 40-minute interview with her. Normally they're like 10 to 12 minutes. And God just used that moment. You talk about intentionality. There's no doubt in my mind that he put me in her path and her in my path, and that intersection of that 40 minutes for a divine purpose. God was wanting me to see something, hear something, feel something, and then ultimately we would later discover do something. And it came about through that interaction with this young lady and her two beautiful little girls. And so we set out to really understand, first of all, how widespread is this in our city? Because what happened out of that moment...
Young people, children living in the car with their mother.
Correct. Out of that moment, we actually learned, Matt, that through dozens of additional encounters with these young moms and kids that were not solicited by us. These young ladies were coming to us, either in our resource center or through our partnering organizations and agencies that we work with, having conversations with Department of Child Safety, some of our partnering schools, Phoenix Police Department, so forth and so on. And then just asking them questions, interviewing them. Hey, how common is this? Like, do you guys know about this? And they're like, really? You're just now learning about this? You're just now seeing it? Not in a critical or condemning way, but really kind of shocked and surprised that the church wasn't more aware of these kinds of situations going on in our city. So we learned that there are, on any given night, just in Maricopa County, which is one of the 4 largest counties in America, across Maricopa County, there are 3,000 women who are unsheltered on any given night. And attached to those 3,000 women are 1,200 children. And the vast majority of those 3,000 and 1,200 are actually living in their cars because of some what I would call disruptor. They've had to move their home, transition their home into their car. And so, what was that all about? Why is that going on? And how might we look at ways that we could lean into that and serve this very, very vulnerable, I would argue, the most vulnerable, unsheltered demographic in our city, women and children who are sleeping in their cars. So we set out to build out this initiative that we call Safelots, which basically provides a temporary outdoor shelter option for women and children, moms and their children who are sleeping in their cars. And we provide them with 6 things that they don't have right now as they're in their cars. One of the first things that we tell them is, look, we're not here to compete with a hotel room. We are not a hotel room. We're the opposite of that. But what we are is a better option than your car. So we set out to give them these 6 things. Number 1, safe sleep and protection. Number 2, we give them weather relief. Number 3, a hot meal at night and a breakfast in the morning because they're with us from 4 in the afternoon until 8 in the morning. And then number 5, we give them access to laundry. Number 6, we give them also access to more permanent housing options that we may be able to help them find. Example of that, last 45 days, we've been able to help 6 women and 12 children gain more access to more permanent housing options. We're really excited about that. So we like to say Safelots, help for today. So it's real practical, tangible help for today. It's a meal, it's laundry, it's safe sleep, real practical. So help for today, which we believe will help produce within them something they've lost, which is hope. We want to restore hope in their lives. So help for today, hope for tomorrow, which we also believe can lead to home for their future.
I can't imagine the feeling of being a mother trying to take care of your kids how do you feed them? I mean, even fast food has gotten so absolutely expensive. You're trying to stay in your car. You have limited resources. Do you keep the AC on? Do you turn it off?
Right.
Trying to move from place to place. I've have friends who have been homeless, and they say they get moved from place to place during the night. People knock on their windows. I mean, just my own daughter who's 8, I want to keep her protected. I want to keep her safe. And I can't imagine being a mother, a female, trying to do that and hold your life together. And how do you go to work? How do you, the lack of hope I think that situation would bring, I don't have a box for that.
Well, one of the biggest challenges that we've had in helping to share the story of these mothers and then also share our vision as to how we may come alongside and serve them. One of our biggest challenges is how do we challenge the existing stereotype within the minds, preconceived ideas within the minds of most people as it relates to homelessness, particularly with this demographic, because the profile of these young women does not fit the stereotypical picture of homeless women. They are not mentally ill. They're not substance abusers. They're not uncaring, lazy moms. They're none of those things. In fact, through the interviews and interactions that I've done with dozens of these young ladies, they are the exact opposite. They're some of the most courageous, some of the most caring women and moms that I have ever met in my life. Let me give you an example of that. One early evening on a Thursday night in our resource center, so we have a cap of the number of individuals or families we can serve in a 2-hour window in any one opening that we have, and that number is 70. Mm-hmm. This young lady approaches
Which that alone
70
is amazing.
Yeah,
that we have
2 hours.
70 people
70
coming,
households.
70 households that come through that we're able to help within 2 hours.
So that's about 300 to 350 people.
Yeah, that's
okay.
staggering.
So the size of our households has increased dramatically since June of last year.
Because for people that don't know, our resource center isn't a huge building.
No. Well, we have outside seating, indoor seating.
Yeah, but it's very modest, and to be able to help that many people,
correct,
is fantastic.
Yeah, so she's standing at the door with her 4 children, and she's number 72. So it's now going to be my task to go to her and say, I'm really sorry. Our cutoff is 70, you're number 72. So I introduced myself, asked her name. Jessica was her name. Real sweet, very timid, very guarded young lady. She's got her kids with her, as I mentioned. And so I said, look, is there any way that you can come back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock? Because our cutoff is 70, and I'm so sorry to have to tell you that you're number 72. And she responded back by saying, well, I'm not sure if I can do that. I don't know if I have the gas to come back. Now, that's a warning flag for me. So at that point, we ask 3 questions. When we get a response like that, we ask 3 questions. We call them our 3 ask questions. So, Jessica, are you safe tonight? Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm running from this guy, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't know where I am and how to find me. Do you have shelter tonight, Jessica? Well, I have my car. That's warning flag number 2, right? She's sleeping in her vehicle with her 4 kids. The third ask is, do you have sustenance? Do you have food? So tonight, if you go home with nothing from us, will you and your children, your 4 kids, have access to any kind of food? And she looks at me, Matt, and she just timidly but firmly, right, says, well, Pastor Bob, I'll figure it out, because that's what moms do. See, that's the kind of young lady, that's the kind of mom I'm talking about here. These are ferociously loyal, resourceful, almost even sometimes to a fault. Their care and concern for their children is paramount. They will even put themselves at harm's risk, which is a whole nother level of vulnerability that we need to be mindful of, because I will tell you right now, some of these young ladies are put into situations where they're having to consider doing things that they ordinarily would never even consider doing for the sake of their children and for the sake of $100 bill that's maybe being presented to them in a moment by some guy.
And the kids
in the
haven't
middle of
eaten
the
that
night,
night.
2:30 in the morning. Yeah, and most of our young ladies, they will have bathed their children in the sink at QT at night and put them to bed with a hot dog and a pretzel and a Coke. And so that's that. But they're doing the best that they can do given the situation that they're in and the options that are available to them in that moment to try to care for their kids. These are amazing young ladies, and so we have the opportunity to just walk alongside them. They don't need us. They don't need a guy like me to swoop into their life and manage their lives and tell them what to do and fix all their problems. These ladies don't need that. They're far too bright for that. They're far too resourceful, and they are amazing ladies. What they really need, and the word God gave me for them early on after that initial meeting with that young mom and her two little girls, Hope and Eternity. The word God gave me for him was, Bob, listen, because I was overwhelmed, Matt. I'm like, what are we gonna? I don't know what to do about this, God. I don't know why you brought this to my attention, but whatever the reason is, you brought it to the attention of the wrong guy.
And at this point,
I can't
an
do
idea of
anything
a
about
safe
this.
lot had never even
Oh
crossed
no,
your mind.
no, we're like overwhelmed with the magnitude of the need,
Yeah.
And so God, I'm like, God, I can't do this. I don't know what to do about this. I don't know how to fix this. And he's like, Bob, let's just rehearse this together. Son, he calls me son. Son, let's talk again about, that interaction you had with Regina and her two little girls. Let's rehearse that. What did you hear? What did you see? What did you feel? Let's go back and revisit all that. And it's just overwhelming. And God is reminding me that I'm not God and that he is. And he's like, Bob, I know you can't fix this. I'm not calling you to fix it. You're not that good. But I am. So just take your rightful seat in this and follow along. Follow my lead. I want you to do one thing for them, son. Let's see if you can manage this one. I want you to give them respite. Just give them a place that they can rest at night and breathe. You think you can do that, son? Yes, sir. I think I can handle that. So that's where we are with Safelots. It's a temporary outdoor shelter option where we have the opportunity to give these amazing young women and their children a place to breathe overnight and rest. They're able to figure out the rest.
Yeah. So good. Thank you for sharing your passion about this, because it's, again, something we didn't even know about. It wasn't even on our radar. I think for most people it isn't. These women aren't out there announcing their presence. A lot of times they're hiding. And
And most of the time they are. They don't want to be found.
Yeah.
They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be approached. They're very transient. They are spending the night with their kids in neighborhoods and in places where they pray to God every night that they won't be found. So yeah, it's a set of challenges to identify them and reach them, and then build a level of trust in them where they're willing to take a shot with a group of strangers and access some of the things that we hope will be helpful to them.
And I think just being able to repivot some children's lives, saving them from the trauma, the pain, the challenges that living in your car can bring, be able to connect them to some amazing things that I think God probably has for them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. It's an honor to serve in that way.
Yeah, thank you, Bob.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to share the Safelot story. Ultimately, it's God's story. So to be able to brag on him and share his story, I'm convinced that these are days of unprecedented opportunity for the church. And when we are willing to more and more and more open our eyes, live awake and attentive to the moment, man, there are so many opportunities for the church to show up and lean in and do what only the church can do. And I'm so excited. I think it's really, honestly, I think it's the next great revival of our day. I really do.
So cool. I love it. Thank you, Bob.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt. Joy to be with you today, my friend.